Affordability has a lot to do with the inclusionary zoning ordinance, but it also talks about, the rent control, the rent to own, right? We're talking about workforce opportunities for, teachers, firefighters, police officers and things like that. In terms of the IZO, I just believe that there needs to be a 20%. In '98, Jersey City and Manhattan were on the same level when it came to introducing an IZO. Since '98, Manhattan has passed 5 inclusionary zoning ordinances, and Jersey City has passed 0. And so we have to be vigilant about ensuring that people are able to stay here. Right, my cousin, she's homeless essentially. She's living with my aunt, the one who catches the via vent, and it's very difficult for her to make meaning of her world if she doesn't have a place to stay. Right, and so the IZO, the 20%, we should also talk about homelessness as well. We met Rosa in the Heights, who was talking about basic needs, and so we have to get real serious about this, because the longer we wait, the more opportunities that we have for folks to go without. And this is something that's near and dear to my heart. There was an IZO that was passed, essentially, and then it was struck down by the judge, right? And so apparently you guys thought that was the most appropriate version. So what I'm trying to understand is why the kickback? Because essentially, right, folks are losing their homes. I have young men in my organization. One particular young man who was a senior last year, and he has epilepsy. And he had to move out of they were displaced because his mom couldn't afford to live there anymore. What are we saying to them that on the government side, the legislative side, that we can't get it together? Well, I don't think that the inclusionary zoning ordinance that they passed was appropriate. Like buyouts, community givebacks, essentially, it sounds good in theory, but the reality is, when we opt out of affordability to give community givebacks, what happens is those people who we intend to support through the community givebacks aren't even able to live there because they would have been they've been bought out essentially. And so what we're saying, it sounds good in theory, but on the ground we are missing the mark in many ways if we think that buyouts and community givebacks should be options right now. There should not be an appointed school board. I trust the people of Jersey City to vote the appropriate people in place who they trust, and I think it's a no-brainer. And to learn, right, that Mayor Fulop was suggesting that, and that it's just appalling to me that we would rather appoint folks as opposed to allowing the community to make a decision. It's very difficult for Mayor Fulop and his council to run the city. So I can't imagine that they would need to add another entity to their plate. The reality here is, if we're talking about name recognition, many of our residents don't even know the name of their council members. So is that a reason to say that we need to debo the school board? At the end of the day, they're federally mandated. There are check and balance systems inside of the school system. They've operated as a separate entity for thus far. And I can't imagine them needing an oversight from the city and making appointments because essentially we're going to be appointing, like we've done with the zoning board, the planning board, the JCRA. And so essentially all of these entities will be serving the mayor. And we need an entity that's going to be operating separately. I was once in that space when, as a teacher, when you realize when you're teaching in a classroom where the ceiling is falling in, right? When you are, when you're the ventilation systems where you're in the classroom and you're sweating, these are real life situations. Like folks went to PS14 recently and said that kids were learning in a room where there was mold. Right, and so that means that the monies that are being used, we need to make sure that they're getting exactly what they need. in the school system. And part of the reason why the school is where the schools are where they are, right, is because as a city, we did not pay our fair share. And we want to just ensure that we be responsible in that way to ensure that all of our kids are getting what they need. When I see my friends who are, barely making, ends meet for themselves, but they are taking their salary to, help a kid in the classroom, we have to do something about that. And to fully fund the school is the basement. We're not even, like, the ceiling is something else where we are allowing kids to, be free and explore and, different types of communities, school communities in the city. So we haven't even gotten to that point because we still haven't been fully funded. It's really about priorities. I really appreciate how recently there's a partnership between the city and the school board. That's awesome, but we also need to make sure that we're paying the fair share. Bottom line, because essentially we're giving money to things like, vanity projects like POMPIDOU, and we're giving money to Sci Tech City, but we're not giving the money that the school needs. The schools need. We can do a better job in supporting our own. That's very important to me. I'm very clear about how government works. And my vanity project will be for the schools and the kids of this community. My son goes to a public school system here, right here in Jersey City, and I'm very proud of the school and the schools in our city. Could they be improved? Yes, but they won't be able to. I want to make sure that they are in the best possible situation. And as the next mayor, that's the goal. I would be remiss if I allowed you to say that you are doing something with gun violence in the community.
There's no way you can say that we're not doing something with gun violence. And I'm not saying.
I didn't interrupt you.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Louis.
So homicide. When you're talking about homicide for 2021, we were up 31%.
Okay.
And so when we're talking about handling it, we need to be vigilant about the preventative measures for the people in our community. And so I hear what you're saying, right? And it sounds good in terms of rhetoric, but when we're on the ground, folks are feeling unsafe. Okay. Folks are feeling like they don't belong here. Guys, listen, Steve, this is not political for me.
No, I know it's not.
But dying in the streets.
Listen.
Guys, one at a time. One at a time.
No, let me just say this.
No.
Let me finish. I'll let you speak.
Go ahead, Louis. Go ahead.
So it's never political for me. This is real life. When I had a young man at PS24, Rodney. He passed away this year to gun violence. And at the end of the day, we need to be clear about our efforts to make a difference in their lives. In 2018, there was a study done for gun violence in the community, a gun violence community needs assessment or something like that. There were four recommendations given to us in the city. We paid tens of thousands of dollars to get it done, right? There were 4 recommendations, and we haven't implemented any of those since 2018. Because it's going to happen, I want to ensure that 3 things happen, right? That we have a robust inclusionary zoning ordinance, and in Ward C particularly, where it's going to be, because we know that real estate is going to go up, and we want those who are there, we want to protect them and make sure that they can stay there, right? Employment opportunities. We want to ensure that there are employment opportunities, but also tracks for leadership. Because there needs to be a true partnership and not just the POMPIDOU leadership imposing, what exactly needs to happen. Because essentially, you're coming into our community, and so there needs to be a robust partnership. And then lastly, that our schools. Our young people need to have access to it, but not in a way where they're learning something new, right? Because at the end of the day, like I said in our last forum, I don't need the POMPIDOU system to be our standard of what art is. We have amazing artists in our community who do great work, and I would like to see a lot of what they do be showcased and highlighted to let our kids know that this is a standard for you. What the mayor doesn't understand, and this is the conversation that we had offline, is that the kids in Booker T, they couldn't care less about a frickin' Picasso, right? There's so many other competing things that are happening in Booker T. i.e. gun violence
Yep.
in the community, i.e. kids not having food to eat, right? When we're talking about what's needed in the community, they're not thinking about a Pompidou Center. They're not thinking about a Picasso. And listen. And at the end of the day, I am an educator at heart, right? Whatever I do, I educate folks. The reality is we're not adverse to kids learning about it or having a real life experience with it. What I'm saying is there are other competing priorities in our city that we should be putting our efforts into making sure that our community has what it needs. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself a question. Has your life improved in the past 8 years under the Steve Phillip administration? And if the answer is no, then you need to make that decision to vote for Louis Spears because you belong to be here. Thank you.